For these, we're going to find the quotient, which means we're dividing. And so for dividing decimals, you're going to see two types of problems here, A and B, which we'll look at first, and C and D, which we'll look at second. Try to think about why they're different. So if I want to divide 3.5 divided by 4, the very first thing I'm going to do is just set up a division problem where I have 3 and 5/100ths divided by 4. And my first step is just to divide. The problem here is you can see 4 does not go into 3, so I write 0. 4 times 0 is 0. I subtract. And I have still 0. Step 2 is to, let's say, bring up the decimal. And so if I want to bring up the decimal, my decimal point's really right here. And I keep going. How many times does 4 go into 35? Well, if I multiply 4 times 8, that's 32. I subtract. There's a remainder of 3. Bring down the 0. 4 goes into 30. 7 times. 4 times 7 is 28. Subtract. That's 2. Bring down another 0. And 4 goes into 20 5 times. 4 times 5 is 20. I subtract and there's no remainder. So my answer here is 0 and 875 thousandths. So my first step was to divide. I did, but as I was doing that, you saw that I brought up my decimal from here to there. And so my answer is there. I'd like you to try B now. Go ahead and divide 7 and 5/10ths divided by 6. If it helps, first set division problem. Think about which number goes inside and which number goes out. Stop the video here, you try. Okay, you try the divisions, time to check your answer. You should have done 7.5 divided by 6. 6 does go into 7 one time. Subtract. You still have 1 left over. Oops. Bring down the 5, and then you have 15. Second step was to bring up the decimal, so if you're going to continue, it's really going to be 1 point something. 6 goes into 15 2 times. That's 12. 3 left over. Bring down a 0, it's now 30. 6 goes into 30 5 times. And you're done. Your answer should have been 1 and 25/100ths. So that was an example involving division with a divisor. That was a whole number. Here we're dividing by 4, which is a whole number. Here we're dividing by 6, which is a whole number. In these two examples, you're going to see that we're going to be dividing by divisors that are not whole numbers. So I'm going to erase this so we can see this work. Actually, let's just move all this up. Okay. Looking at these two examples, you can see, first, I'll do C. We have 105 thousandths divided by 3/10ths. So my first step is still to divide, but I'm going to set up division with 0.105 divided by 0.3. Before I divide though, I need to add a step 0. And the step 0 we'll say is to remove the decimal in the divisor. Let me show you what I mean by that. So in this example, the divisor was 0.3. I want to turn it into a whole number like I had up here. So in order to do that, I'm going to move my decimal into my divisor one place, which means I also need to move my decimal into my dividend one place, and then I'll just rewrite the problem. This is really one and 5/100ths divided by 3. Now that I've done that, it should be a little easier for me to divide and multiply to get there. So I'll divide. 3 goes into 0 0 times. Subtract. Bring down the 1. 3 goes into 1 0 times. subtract. I have 1, bring down the 0. Now 3 goes into 10 3 times, but before I do that, I still need to remember my second step, which is to bring up the decimal. So now my new decimal in my quotient is going to go right there. 3 goes into 10 3 times. That's 9. But it extended the page. So I bring down the 1. And 3 goes into 15 5 times. See if it continues to extend the page. It does. And when I subtract, I have nothing left over. So my answer is 35 hundredths. So you can see the first step there is really just to move the decimal so that your divisor is a whole number. So I want you to try to do D. Go ahead and set up the problem. If you need some help, you can press play just to check how I set up the problem, and then you finish it before you check. You try it now. Okay, quick check, just to make sure you set up the problem correctly. This should have been 1 and 25 hundredths divided by 0.8. You move the decimal in your divisor, you move the decimal in your dividend, and then the new problem would have been 12.5 divided by 8. Keep going. If you divide it from there, 8 goes into 1 0 times. 8 goes into 12 1 time. I have 4. When I bring down the 5, before I continue, I remember that my decimal is brought up. So my answer will be 1 point something. And then 8 goes into 45. Let's see. 5 times 8 times 5 is 40. Bring down the 5. Subtract. That's 5. 8 goes into 50. 6 times. That's 48. Subtract. And that's 2. I'm running out of space here. So that's 2. I'm carrying that over here. Bring down another 0. Oh, there you go. 2. Bring down another 0. 8 goes into 20 2 times. That's 16. Subtract. I have 4. And bring down one last 0. And I have 40, and 8 goes into 40 5 times. 40, subtract, I have nothing left over. So your final answer there should have been 1 and 5,625 10,000ths. Now it's your chance to check for independent practice. You have 6 problems here that I'd like you to complete. Submit your answers afterwards. If you do well, you should be ready for Objective Assessment 2A.1. Good luck.